Look at the price tag on your phone, your car, your grocery bill. You've been told those numbers went up because of a trade war, a fight America started to put China in its place. You've been told America is winning. Here's what nobody is telling you. The fight is already over, and China won. Not with missiles, not with armies, with something far more powerful: control over the invisible ingredients inside everything you own. Let's go back to April 2025. The Trump administration had just launched what it called the most aggressive tariff campaign in modern American history. The plan was simple on paper: slap 145% tariffs on Chinese goods flooding into the United States, force China to the negotiating table, bring manufacturing jobs back home, restore American industrial dominance. It sounded like a power move. It turned out to be a test, and China passed it in ways Washington hadn't predicted. Here's how trade wars actually work. They are not about who can shout loudest. They are about who can absorb the most pain without flinching, and who holds the weapon the other side cannot replace. The United States assumed it held that weapon. It was wrong. Within days of the 145% tariffs hitting, China hit back with 125% tariffs on American goods. That was expected. What wasn't expected was what came next. On April 4th, 2025, China announced export restrictions on heavy rare earth elements and permanent magnets. 7 categories of materials. Materials with names most people have never heard: dysprosium, terbium, holmium. Materials that sit inside your phone, your electric vehicle, your military's fighter jets, and the wind turbines powering entire regions of the American grid. Let's pause on that for a second, because this is where the story stops being about tariffs and starts being about something much more uncomfortable. According to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, one of Washington's most respected defense think tanks, China currently controls approximately 70% of global rare earth mining and 90% of global rare earth processing. That is not a trade statistic. That is a choke point. A single nation sitting on the valve that controls the flow of materials every modern economy depends on. Your phone needs rare earth magnets in its speakers and its vibration motor. Your car's electric motor needs them. The F-35 fighter jet requires hundreds of kilograms of rare earth materials per aircraft. The guided missiles your country buys to keep its military capable need them too. And in April 2025, China turned off the tap. What happened next tells you everything. Within weeks of those export restrictions hitting, auto manufacturers across the United States, Europe, and Japan began reporting supply disruptions. Ford had to pause production at one of its plants. Other car makers were scrambling to find alternative sources of magnets that outside of China barely exist in commercial quantities. The Diplomat reported that China's export licensing regime caused US imports of high-performance rare earth magnets to fall by 93%, not 10%, not 30%, 93%. The Trump administration, which had just imposed the biggest tariff escalation in a generation to demonstrate American strength, blinked. Within 90 days, the US was back at the table negotiating a truce. Not a victory, a truce. And here's the part that gets buried in the headlines. When the truce came, the US gave back meaningful concessions: tariff pauses, extensions of exemptions on Chinese goods, the rollback of planned chip export controls. China gave back rare earth access but kept its export licensing system intact. 6-month licenses, sensitive information disclosures required, a tap that Beijing can turn off again whenever it chooses. The Diplomat put it plainly: this isn't a peace deal, it's a ceasefire in a war that will erupt again. Now zoom out even further and look at the numbers behind the numbers. While America was running the most aggressive tariff campaign of its modern history, China's overall trade surplus grew by 20% in 2025 to a record $1.19 trillion, not despite the tariffs alongside them. China simply redirected its exports to Europe, to Southeast Asia, to the global South countries the US had been ignoring for years. When one door partially closed, Beijing walked through a dozen others. Meanwhile, according to CNBC's year-end analysis, China's GDP grew by 5.2% in the April to June quarter of 2025, even at the height of trade war escalation. The US economy, by contrast, was dealing with inflation that had stayed stubbornly above the Federal Reserve's 2% target throughout the year, driven in part by the very tariffs designed to punish Beijing. The Tax Foundation calculated that Trump's tariffs amounted to the largest US tax increase as a percentage of GDP since 1993 and translated to an average tax increase of roughly $1,500 per American household in 2026. You paid that, not China. The Peterson Institute for International Economics found something that shattered the narrative even further. Between 2017 and the end of 2025, China's share of US goods imports fell from 22% to 9%. Sounds like a win, right? Except look at where those imports went instead. They went to Vietnam, to Taiwan, to Mexico, not to American factories. The manufacturing jobs didn't come home. The supply chains just rerouted through cheaper third countries and landed back on American store shelves anyway, just with a longer journey and a higher price tag attached. The Bureau of Labor Statistics recorded a loss of 42,000 manufacturing jobs between April and August 2025, the months during which the tariffs were at their most aggressive. China also hit American farmers where it hurts most. It stopped buying US soybeans, a direct and calculated strike at Trump's rural voter base. US soybean exports to China dropped 75% in 2025. After talks in October, China resumed purchases again as a negotiating chip, again on its own timetable. And then there is the story of tungsten. China controls approximately 80% of the world's tungsten supply, a metal so strong it is used in defense systems, aerospace manufacturing, and medical devices. Beijing restricted tungsten exports too, not loudly, quietly, as a reminder of how many pressure points it holds that America has not yet felt. Here's the counterintuitive twist that changes how you read all of this. China did not win this trade war by being more powerful than America. It won by being more patient, by investing in the foundations of industrial leverage over decades, while the United States assumed that market forces and globalization would always keep supply flowing. Haley Channer, a rare earths expert at the University of Sydney's United States Studies Center, described it this way: China built end-to-end supply chains, raw ore, refining, processing, and downstream manufacturing, the entire value chain, under one flag. Breaking that stranglehold, experts at the University of Sydney and CSIS agree will take at least a decade, even with billions in emergency financing, even with new bilateral frameworks with Australia, Japan, Malaysia, and Saudi Arabia, even with government price floors set at $110 per kilogram, to try to make domestic production economically viable. A decade minimum against a system China spent 30 years constructing. So, what does this mean for you? It means the price of your next phone, your next car, your next household appliance is being shaped not by market competition but by the outcome of this power struggle, a struggle that already has a scorecard. It means the tariffs your government told you would protect your job and lower your trade deficit did the opposite, raised your prices, relocated your supply chains to third countries, and left you holding the bill. It means the rare earth elements inside the device you're watching this on passed through Chinese-controlled refineries before they reached you, and there is no alternative supply chain mature enough to replace that yet. Not in 2025, not in 2026, not for years to come. The trade war was sold to you as a fight to put China in its place. Look at your price tag, look at your grocery bill, look at your phone. The fight is already over, and China won it before most people even knew it had started.